Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. But before I get to our guest here, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. We have Dianna Johnston here on the show with us. She owns her own business in the beauty field. She's also a women's physique competitor, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Dianna, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to get into that healthy and fit lifestyle? What was your backstory?
Okay, well, I've been a hairdresser for 7 years, and when I first started in the beauty field, I was 230 pounds, and I was working, at the time I was doing full service, so I was doing women and men clients. Later in life, I switched to just barbering, but in the first 2 years, I started doing women's and men's clients. And a lot of my female clients were like in their mid 40s to 50s, and they're in really good shape. I mean, granted, they didn't have like jobs and their husband like worked and stuff like that. But I was just like, I was in my early 20s and I'm like, God, I look like this. And these women I work on all the time are in shape, and I'm just excuse after excuse. And, there was like a, self-confidence issue, whenever going shopping was never fun. I'd always be like sweating, crying, trying to like peel off the clothes while I'm sweating. And then you hear seams popping while you're like trying to put it on. It's like, oh God, this isn't fitting. And it was just like, I was tired of being self-conscious. Like I would wear like twice the amount of clothes just to hide myself. And it got to a point where I was like, this has to change, I don't feel comfortable in myself anymore. And it's not like so many people on my Instagram that do follow me. They're like, oh, you always were pretty. And that's one thing that I like to address is that I never thought I was ugly. I just wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I wasn't comfortable in the clothes I'd wear. I wasn't comfortable every time I'd be in a different environment. And then whenever I started getting jealous of like my girlfriends who looked good, I was like, oh God, I was like, nope, this isn't happening. We had to change. So then in September 2013 is when I got my gym membership, and I was like, all right, this is it. We're going to try a whole new gym. I signed up with Anytime Fitness, and I was like, okay, this is it for real. Because you know how it is, like whenever you're trying to quit smoking and stuff, you say you're going to do it, keep not doing it. I was one of those people, kept making excuses. Like I'd be on a good track and then boom, then I'd stop going for 6 months. And I was going to Snap Fitness at the time, and that sucked. I didn't like the gym that much. So I was just like, yeah, I don't like this gym. So then I just stopped going. So then we canceled our memberships, and then I wasn't going to the gym. Then I gained a lot of weight, and I'm a good cook because prior to the beauty field, I used to cook for a living. So I'm really good at cooking, which is why I have my DTV channel on Instagram. So then I was like, all right, we need to, start doing cardio. Never in my life had I lifted a weight ever. So I just started doing cardio like everybody does whenever you first start your fitness journey. And I didn't really have any goal at the time. In 2013, it was just more so to live a healthier lifestyle and to feel more comfortable in my clothes. Mm-hmm. That was what I was going for. Well, then I started meeting up with a group of friends there who were lifting and stuff like that. And then we started lifting together as a group. And we kept coming at the same time. And my girlfriend at the time, she was like, do you want me to teach you some things with some weights? And I was like, yeah, that would be cool. I just feel self-conscious and scared going into the like weight area. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to look stupid. And so she ran me through my first workout, and I really enjoyed it. But because I was using every part of my body that I had never used before, the next day I needed like an ambulance to take me out of bed. I'll never forget it. I was crying because my abdominals hurt so bad. I literally was crying, and my ex-husband at the time, I was like, I think I pulled something. I was like, because I've never been in so much pain. And it was so sore that it felt that way because I'd never used those parts of my body in Lord knows how long. So I was fine, but I actually somehow was like, okay, as soon as you feel better, like, let's try again, because I actually enjoyed the weight training, but I was like, okay, we need to tone it down a little bit and then ease into it. And then I started doing it by myself. And then my friend Cody at the time, he was like, hey, he's like, have you ever seen Dana Lynn Bailey? And I'm like, who is that? And he's like, look her up. He's like, I think you'd like her. So I did. As soon as I looked up DLB, I was like, oh my God. I was like, I want her body. I was like, I'm in love with how she looks. Cause like growing up, you know, you always see like skinny models and like skinny is the thing to be in a regular society, you know? And it's just like my whole life, I've always been the big girl in the class, you know? So I always wanted to be skinny. And when I saw the muscular look, I was like, oh my God, I was like, I would rather look like that than trying to achieve skinny. Like, I was just so attracted to that look. I was like, I want to look like that. And I never once doubted that I couldn't look like that because I just knew it took dedication and discipline. And I started falling in love with weightlifting. So then that's whenever I started watching her weightlifting videos, and then I would copy the movements, and then that's how I kind of developed learning how to weightlift. Is I just watched video after video and practiced it myself, and then I fell in love with weightlifting. So then January 2014, I was like, that's it. I need a goal, and I'm setting a goal. I said, I'm going to do my first women's physique show in 2 years, because I figured 2 years was enough time to get rid of my body fat percentage that I had and to build up enough muscle to look like I could compete in something. So then 2 years and 3 months later, June 2016, I stepped on stage, did my first women's physique show, placed dead last, and it was great. I did hire a coach though. I tried my first year by myself, you know, playing with my diet and seeing like, you know, I'd watch like Flex Lewis and Kai Green and all their videos and like just kind of see what they're eating and munching on. So then I was like trying to incorporate that with my diet, and I was completely wrong. So I tried for a whole year. I did lose my first like 40 pounds by myself. So I got down to 190 and I was looking good and I was building muscle and everything. But then 2015 came and I started going back up, and I was like, I almost went into powerlifting because I was like, oh, that just means I can eat more and just lift heavier, like gains, bro. So I started eating shit again, and then I got back up to 205. And I was like, shit. It was like, I think I need a coach. So then I hired my first coach, Tim Thompson. He's Team TNT _ Wisconsin on Instagram. And me and him are still really good friends. He's not my coach right now. I'm with Underrated Muscle. But he was my first coach. And a lot of people, before I even approached a coach, were like, they're going to laugh at you. They're like, they're going to look at you and probably say no. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, should I even approach anybody? Like, oh my gosh. Like at the time, the way I saw myself, I didn't feel like I still looked like a big girl. I thought I was like shaping down. And now when I look back at those photos, I'm like, oh my God, I still was really big. But at the time, my confidence was building up because one thing I really worked on before I got fit was how I felt about myself. And I actually did self-development and I read some books and stuff like that. So I actually built my self-confidence before I turned fit. And I'm really glad I did, because there's a lot of those issues in the fitness industry, which is one thing I'm trying to help with. Tim took me on and he's like, all right, we need to go. And I'm like, so when do we start? Like 16 weeks out? He's like, we need to start now. And it was a year from the date that I had planned my first show, which I wanted to do Fox Cities in April 2016. Well, that didn't happen. I wasn't ready yet. But he was like, we need to start now if you want to start. And I'm like, shit. And I'm like, all right, let's start talking about prices and stuff. And I was like, oh, I can't afford that. And I'm like, you know what? This is my dream. This is my goal. I'm going to make it happen. So I took a loan out enough to pay for my coach, to pay for my first couple weeks of food, my supplements I needed, like my vitamins and all the stuff he wanted me to be on, like pre-workout, post-workout, all that crap, and then to buy my suit. So I took out a big enough loan to cover all that. So I was committed to this goal. So I did that and I did my first show. And after my first show, I was like, I get it. I see why people love this. Like, it's hard. And it was hard the whole time, my first year, almost and a half, getting ready for my first show. I mean, it was pure diet for a year and a half straight, you know, and doing cardio. He would make me walk outside in the freezing cold in the morning, so I burn more fat. And I'm like, I hate you, Tim. Like, I really hate you. I'd be outside, my eyelashes would be freezing, and I'm like, this is necessary? He's like, yes. He's like, get your ass outside. I want a picture every morning. And I'm like, oh God, he's serious.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, ever since that first show, then I was like, this is it. I was like, this is for me. That little 5 minutes for the year and a half was so worth it. And I'm in the beauty industry, so obviously any opportunity to have glitter and gems all over me is fantastic. So it's like a pageant. So I'm like living my wannabe pageant dreams through this. But then I love challenging myself too, because I think a lot of my discipline came from my younger years, because I haven't had parents in my life since I was 11. And I moved up here. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, but I moved up here 17 years ago to live with my oldest sister and her husband. And her husband was an alcoholic, so he was very disciplined. And he used to be in the Army back in the day, and so he kind of ran us like the Army. We were up at 4 o'clock before school, having to do like mile runs in the morning, push-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, and like his form of discipline, because he had never had teenagers before, was a bit harsh. Like, for instance, a punishment one time was to dig a 6-foot hole in the backyard. And I wasn't even a bad kid.
It's like the movie Holes.
Yeah, I didn't even like do drugs or anything until after I left the house. That's when I was naughty. Like, I was too scared shitless to do anything, and they always were grounding me. I was grounded like my whole teenage life, doing these ridiculous things. And like one time he was like, "You need to run a 6-minute mile." I was running all day. He wouldn't let me come home until I ran a 6-minute mile. So I ran away that day.
Yeah.
But I came back because it was too cold.
It was boot camp at your house, basically.
Yeah, it was boot camp. I hated my teenage years. Absolutely hated them. But you know what? I will say that form of discipline, I think, carried over into my adult life. Because like when he wasn't an alcoholic, or like when he wasn't drunk, he was a decent guy. Mm-hmm. But it was whenever he was drunk that it was like hell on earth. But I will say that is the one thing I can probably thank him for, is the discipline, because I went from being the baby in the family with my siblings to being the oldest, to having to raise my nieces and nephews. Mm-hmm. So they're like my kids, and I consider them my kiddos. So it was like a big change and a big flip-flop. And I think that developed a lot of my discipline. And then I think a lot of it too is just from inside me, because I've always had a drive, and I never was ever like around anything positive. I don't know. It just always kind of came from within, I guess. That's something that I can't really give advice to people of how to achieve that. But as far as like a physical discipline, I'd say that's kind of where maybe it came from. I was in sports for a little bit from 5th grade to 7th grade. And then I was back in my sophomore year because they pulled me out of school my 8th grade year to raise my nephew, because my brother-in-law was too drunk to watch him all the time. So I was in basketball and volleyball, and I loved it. And I was always the kid who like always wanted to be like the all-star. And like he made me train all summer long. Like literally I'd have like a lunch with me and my basketball, and I wasn't allowed to come home until sunset. I'd have to practice basketball all day. Well, I ended up loving it. So another way of forming discipline. And I'd probably say I trained harder than anybody else on my team, but I just was never talented. Like I was good when I wasn't on the court, but it was like as soon as I was on the court, it was like I got stage fright, and then I would always like mess up. I'd always like dribble the ball and it'd hit my foot, and I'm like, I'm really good at this. Like, why am I sucking? And then like the nerves would start going. But I had a blast while I was doing it though. So competing now in bodybuilding, I feel like this is finally a sport that I feel like I have potential in. And there's still that team aspect whenever you join a coach and everything, because you meet your teammates and everything, and then you uplift each other. And it's really nice to have that, because even though we're not playing a game together, we kind of are, you know? So I like that aspect a lot, even though it's an individual sport. And I feel like this is something where it's like, unfortunately, bodybuilding is one of those sports where you kind of have to have some form of genetics to it. Is like you either have the look or you don't. Like those poor people who have extremely blocky waists and stuff like that. I mean, it's just like this is the one sport where it's like, yeah, you kind of got to have a little bit of a look. And I'm very lucky to have the small waist that I do. And my legs are very dominant feature. So we're trying to catch up the upper body. But I think I have potential. In my first show, I placed last, obviously, because I was still heavier in my first show, but I didn't care. I knew that going into it, so I wasn't having any expectations. And then my second show, I was like, okay, let's work really hard, you know. And we did. We changed a lot from first show to second show. It was another year in between the shows, and big changes the second show. And it was just me and one other girl, and I did win first in overall last year. Yeah, last year, because we're not in 2019 yet. Last year, June, I did win first in overall. So that was like a good mood booster. And then we were getting ready for another show last year in October. I did the Minnesota North Star. That show, I placed third out of 3 girls. So I was kind of like, it went from like, I just won a show to like, I just placed last again. So then going into my first national show this year in July, I did the USA's in Vegas. And at first I was really excited. And then once it got really close, I started doubting myself a lot. I don't know. It was just like mentally, I was like not good. I would definitely say that I was like very questionable, and I was like, not because of how I look. Like looking back, I looked good for it. It was just the prep brain and everything getting to you and the pressure. And I was like, there's a lot of things going on personally in my life too that I was like, I don't want to be embarrassed. And you know, I was just like, please God, I was like, just don't let me get dead last. So whenever, I think there was a small fault to this, because whenever they were doing second call-outs, which is what I was in, because there was only 1 and 2 groups in my height class, they had called my name earlier, but I didn't hear it because I do have slight hearing problems. So I'm literally the last one standing on the edge of the stage, and I'm like, are you going to call my number? Like, did they forget my number? And they're like, so they just threw me on the end. And whenever I looked at the NPC news page, exactly how we were lined up is exactly the placings we got. So I was standing in 11th out of 12th place. So I think, had I heard my number, because everybody was like, they called your number earlier. Like, and when I look at the pictures, I mean, there's a woman in the middle who had a gut. So I was like, I'm pretty sure I was a lot more shredded than that. But you know what? I'm okay, because going into this show, like, honestly, this is my 5th show, my 2nd national show, and this is the most confident and comfortable I've ever felt going into it. Even my emotional state, like, I'm weirdly calm. This is the first time. Usually I'm like an emotional wreck, crying every single day. And like people on social media, they're like, you're such a happy person. It's like, yeah, because I can't put the ugly crying on there. But this time around, it's like, no, I really am happy. It's like, I don't know. I feel like everything's lining up really good. I just got my suit a couple days and it's gorgeous. I can't wait to wear it. And I just feel like things are definitely going really good for this show. So my ultimate goal for this show is first call-outs. Obviously, I would love a pro card, but I'm not going to say realistic because I don't believe in that bullshit. But first call-outs, I would be happy. Pro card is obviously what we're going for. So we'll see. Diet changed as of this morning. Ooh. So it's pretty intense for the last 2 weeks. Not going to lie. I might be a little delirious. So today you caught me on a good day before my brain's completely fried.
Absolutely. We definitely caught her on a good day. And I kind of like to, sort of make the comparison where if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people in it, there are 100 different ways as to how people got into the shape that they're in, whether it's their nutrition, whether it's, what reps, how many reps they do, what sort of exercises they do. Was that hard for you, first of all, starting out to sort of decide or figure out what was best for your body? Because like I said, if you were to go up to someone and ask, like, how'd you get to the shape that you're in? Their answer is not going to be 100% what's going to work for you. Was that difficult for you figuring that out, what worked specifically for you at the beginning?
Not really. I just I'm a goal setter. So like whenever I train a specific body part, I'm like, okay, we're going to at least go to 10 reps And because I watched DLB videos, I loved her training style and the discipline, because that's how I train actually. Is I train pretty intense. So I do a lot of supersetting, drop setting, pyramid setting. I love that. Like, the harder the weight training, like, the more high I get out of it. Because back in the day, I used to be a drug addict. So it's like, and then I almost was an alcoholic at one point in my life. So it's like, this is the first healthy, like, addiction that I've ever had. So, like, having a really hard training session, it's like, yeah, that was good. Like, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So it was more so like, whenever I first was introducing weightlifting, it was like, okay, let's at least get 10. And if we can push more, let's just go until you can't push it anymore. So it ranged anywhere between like 10 to like 15 reps at the time. And if it felt like it was getting too easy, that's when I'd up the weight. So that's kind of like how I introduced it to myself.
Yeah. So one of the big myths and stereotypes that I love to bust on the show, I mean, it's gotten better the last 5 years because of Instagram, I think, but there still is this belief among some women where if they touch one weight, they're just going to hulk out and become Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson overnight. They're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle. I mean, sign me up if that's the case. I mean, I've been trying to find that secret for plenty of years, but I haven't found it yet. But did you ever have that fear when you were starting out that, like, oh, I don't want to touch a weight because I don't want to, get super, super huge? And even if you didn't, and I can guarantee that there are probably women that have come up to you and had that fear. What is your main response to that?
So I was never afraid of that, because what I loved was how muscular DLB looked. So I was like, I can't wait to get jacked, So I was like, oh, you just lift weights and you get jacked, So I was like, yeah, working out every day. And I'm like, how come I'm not getting jacked? Like, so it was like probably by like year 3.5, almost 4, that I finally started seeing like my delts come out and stuff. And I'm like, are you effing kidding me? Like, it's taken 4 years of this. And like, whenever I first started, of course, I had the friends that were like, whoa, don't get too big. And I'm like, oh, I don't care. I want to get big. It just never bothered me whenever somebody would say that. And when I have women come up to me, first thing I tell them, like, whenever they're asking me for advice and stuff, I'm like, lift weights. I said, you want to tone it? You need to lift weights. I said, and don't be afraid of the whole, I'm going to look like a man. I said, because it's taken me 5 years of complete dedication to finally see some form of muscle on my body, like bulging. I said, it takes a lot of discipline, 7 days a week, and intense dieting to look like a man. I said, so don't be afraid. I said, and I tell them, I said, building more muscle is going to actually help you burn more fat. And as soon as I say that, they're like, okay. So actually, a lot of my girlfriends, they lift weights. So it's good. And like, they're not trying to compete or anything. They're just trying to be healthy. But I think them seeing my page and everything helps them feel more comfortable. Like, yeah, I can lift some weights. And then they see that their body changes actually faster when they lift weights and still do their cardio that they like to do.
We're going to put this myth to rest, too, in about 5 seconds. Can you give us a flex real quick? And I was going to say, does she look like the Hulk? Does she look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? She's been working out for so long. Yeah, see, look at that. She's been working out for like 5 years. Oh my God, she looks so bad. She looks so manly. No, it's ridiculous, people. I mean, that's one of those things I was like, come on. All the people that we've looked on here, it's like, I've had Ronnie Coleman on here, and I'm going to post it in a couple of days. It's like, yeah, that guy, he's huge. But women, you're never going to see that. That's just, it's the amount of work and the amount of stuff that you'd have to do in order to even look 1/10 like that. It's ridiculous. I just don't, it's one of those things that I love putting to rest. And also another big one is that, women, a lot of them sometimes believe that there's going to be like these big 400-pound guys in there that are going to be super intimidating and they aren't going to make them, feel comfortable. But I always say that 99.9% of the people in the gym don't even know that you exist because they're too busy focused on their own workouts. So it's just about getting in there. I mean, I always like to tell the story. When I was in college was when I really started working out and getting in shape. There was a girl that I knew who I'm really good friends with now, and I was really good friends with back then. She was always like, I really see that you're working out and you look great, and I sort of want to get into the gym too, but I'm too afraid. I don't want to get so, bulky. And then finally one night I finally just snapped and said, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse weighs more than a lot of the dumbbells that are in the gym, and you're not gaining anything from lugging that thing around all day. So then that sort of convinced her. So it's just all about just getting in there and just sort of, you know, realizing that once you start, it's one of the most healthy things that you can do. And I sincerely mean that. But when you got started too, and you're competing and your prep, what was your first prep like? Because everyone always talks about, you know, just the lifestyle change of the nutrition just to get sort of into the shape where you can sort of start to prep. That's hard enough. But prepped is taking it up a whole different level. What was that experience like for you the first time?
So what I thought was healthy eating was completely wrong. I thought that's, you know, eating whole wheat noodles or like spinach fettuccine and stuff like that. I was like, oh, this is healthy, you know, and still eating spaghetti sauce with it and stuff and just putting turkey meat instead. My idea of what healthy eating was completely wrong. So whenever I started, it was very basic food groups. I mean, it's your lean meats, vegetables, and then your good clean carbs. So whether it be like regular potatoes, sweet potato, oatmeal, rice, brown or white. It just depends on your coach and your body and how they want to diet you down, basically. So then I was like, wow, this is pretty basic. I was like thinking it was like something so much more complicated, but it wasn't. And I was like, oh, you know, whenever you first start, you're really excited. It's like, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to get shredded. Like, and then I was like, oh, this is going to take a lot more time, isn't it? You know, I was actually really disappointed whenever I picked up weights and I wasn't getting like bulky and shredded. I was like, what the F? I want to be bulky like tomorrow. Like, this is supposed to be happening. I was actually really disappointed how fast it wasn't happening.
It is such a time process. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh my God. If there's one lesson I can say through this whole thing, it's trust in the process. Like they say, as much as it's corny and they're like, I don't know, trust it. No, really. Because the last few weeks is when everything really changes. And every time you're always so doubtful, and then all of a sudden you're like, what the hell's happening? It's like your body like is perfectly timed, and your coach knows whenever it's perfectly timed. It's crazy. So this being my 5th show, I can finally say, yes, trust the process, and it takes time. It's a time process thing, because getting down to the body fat I'm at right now, which is still not even like on that Michaela Aycock level. Like she is shredded. Same with
that's ridiculous. Yeah, just looking at her, and, like, and she's so young too. I'm like, how are you? It's like, are you kidding me? It's like, imagine her in 5 years, what that's gonna look like.
Yeah, and I met Machina. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. I met her at Olympia, and she's just insane shredded. I watch her all the time, and I'm just like, oh, I'm like, I want to look that shredded. And it's just like, it takes time, because your body fat has to literally get down to like in the single digits. And I don't think I'm in the single digits. Maybe I am. I'm not sure. I have no idea. I've never measured it before. People ask me all the time. I wished I could, but I don't know of any places around here that don't cost like $1,000 to try it out.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm okay with just like looking at myself,
just play it by ear. Yeah.
But it is a time process, and each show you do, as long as you're progressing, yes, you should be getting leaner each show. It just takes, that's where the time and experience comes in, and that's something that I've had to learn.
We've had people we've had Katie Lee come on the show. We've had Autumn Swanson come on the show, and those are just.
I love Katie. She's so sweet.
She was one of the nicest guests we've ever had. Yeah, she's huge too. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So yeah, she was so great. But going into your show, one of the things that I like to point out, you know, is that I'm one of the palest people you'll ever meet. What is that experience like for you the first time putting that tan on? Because we always hear these stories about people, you know, you see everything pop out and you see muscles that you never thought that you ever had. What was that experience like for you the first time putting that tan on?
Well, my coach did prepare me. He did tell me to start pre-tanning before that, so therefore the tan would look better. So, and I'm part Hispanic, so tanning for me is not that hard. But I was like kind of excited to turn black. I was like, oh, I'm excited to see how dark I get. And then like I looked down and I'm like, oh my God, my stomach is so dark. And like it was more so like, it was just a fun experience. My first show, I was like, I can't wait to like turn green. Like, this is going to be awesome. Yeah. But No, it wasn't like weirded out for me. It was just like I was so excited to do my first show because it took me 2 years to get ready for
Yep.
my first show. So I was beyond ready for my first show. And like I had my whole routine done and everything. Like I'm actually pretty decent about doing routines, and people have asked me if I've had help with them. And I'm like, no, I created myself just by watching others and seeing moves that I likes. And then I'm like, I want to try that out, and then I'll incorporate it in a routine. I will say though, this is the first show where I've kind of put my routine on the side, so now I'm trying to having to come up with one, which I kind of have. Out of all of the routines I've had, I'm like, this is the most basic. You need to step it up. so I have like my prejudging routine down, but like my night show routine, I'm kind of slacking, so I'm having to catch up on that this time around.
I got a perfect idea for you for a routine. If you've ever seen Napoleon Dynamite, do the Happy Hands Club thing where you do the butterfly thing coming out when you're doing that. That's a guaranteed win right there for anyone out there. You can steal it. You can take it to the bank. But when you're competing or when you started, how is posing? I mean, because posing, most people don't realize that can be the hardest thing for people. When it comes to their nutrition, to their working out, posing can be the hardest thing for them. Was that ever a difficult struggle for you at first? And I know that it's a thing that people say, you know, like you're always adapting to, you're always working on. But what was that experience like for you starting out, and how have you sort of adapted to it?
I'm glad you asked that question. So since day one, when I set this goal, I believed in me so much. And I like watching videos, man, I started posing from day one as a fat girl. I was like, I actually have a picture. I don't know where it's at. I might have accidentally deleted it. But me and my ex, I was like, okay, I'm going to try a lat spread. I was like, let's see how it is. And it looked like nothing. And I was like, okay, hold on. Let me try and activate my lat. So I was like practicing since day one. So whenever we had our first official like team practice with my first coach, oh man, was I sweating that day, because I learned little tweaks as to what I wasn't doing, which was, it wasn't bad my first session, because I was already practicing all of it. Even though I had no idea what I was doing, I was mimicking what I was seeing. And I was always posing in the mirror. Like I would be in the mirror and I'd do like a quarter turn, or I'd do like a front, mandatory, or I'd like try and do my back mandatory. And I was just always flexing because I was just so into it. And like anytime I've set a goal, I like involve my entire life into it. So I literally was practicing since day one. And even my coach said, he's like, you're a natural poser. And it's just because from day one, I was starting to practice it, even when I had no idea what the heck I was doing.
Yeah. And I have a lot of up-and-coming bands on this show, as well as, competitors and health and fitness people. And one of the things that I sort of like to ask both, that sort of applies for my bands, I like to ask, what is that feeling like performing live and going on stage and performing all those songs? What is that feeling like? But I think that also sort of applies for competitors. When you're walking on stage and showing off all that hard work that, you've dieted down so hard for, you've trained so hard for, what is that feeling like for you?
Oh, it's fantastic. So like, my first show, man, I was confident as all hell. I was like, yes, it's finally time to show it off. So I was like, here I am. I was so excited. Then my second show, I was like, yeah, I'm excited to do this all over again. Then my third show, I don't know what happened. I got like almost stage fright right before going on stage. Every time I get on stage, I can always play it off, but I was like shaking on my third show, like inside, like physically I can hold it together. You know how you'll see some people and they're like shaking in their poses on stage. Like that never happens to me. Inside I might be, but I actually pull it off pretty good, even when I do feel like nervous. But that third show, for some reason, I don't know what happened. I got really nervous before I went on stage, and I never felt that way before. And then right before nationals, I almost started getting that way, and I was like, you need to stop this. I was like, if this is your first national show, you need to pull it together. And I was like, all right, let's get this. So then it's like you kind of like motivate yourself, and it's like, all right, come on, this is what we've been waiting for. We've dieted almost 10 months for this. Let's get out there and show them what we got. So, and now going into this show, I'm really excited again. Almost like that same feeling from my first show, where I'm just like, I'm ready to show them what I'm bringing. Like I'm excited. And it's just, it's a mix of emotions. You do get the little bit of butterflies, but then it's like, It's like you get that butterflies right as you're standing at the edge of the stage, right before it's your turn. But then as soon as you start walking on stage, I mean, this is how I feel anyways. As soon as I start walking on stage, it's like it's gone. And it's like, here we are. And it's like every move counts. They're watching every single part of you. So you're literally like, it's like game time.
And probably one of my most important questions that I ask here for my health and fitness guests are most people don't realize that when you guys are competing, when you guys are into your stage body, that is not a sustainable look. A lot of people sometimes look at these competitors and they say, wow, they must look that great 365 days out of the year. They must just be shredded all the time. That is not the case at all, unless you're, doing something or you're just taking it to a whole different level where it's very, very unhealthy for you. But when it comes to, your post show, you are going to put on a few pounds. It doesn't matter. I mean, you're going to it could be 5, 10 pounds. It doesn't matter. What are some ways that you sort of prepare yourself mentally for the fact that, hey, I am going to put on weight and it is healthy and it's totally, totally something that needs to happen? What are some ways that you use to sort of make sure that you don't, go crazy thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to put on weight?
So I actually, like I said, having that self-confidence and that self-love for yourself before getting the body that I have now actually helped play a role in that a lot. I was very understanding of the process, knowing that this is an unrealistic look to have 24/7, to be that shredded stage look. Can you look in shape all year round? Yes, absolutely, but not to the body fat percentage that we get down to right before a show. And I was very aware of that leading into it. So I was okay. I mean, I've never really had an off season. I basically have been on season for the last 3 years of my life. So I haven't fully had a full on off season, but I have had periods where I did get to gain some weight back, and I would gain anywhere between 10 to 15 pounds back for that little bit of period from stage weight anyways, which is after water drop. So I kind of don't consider that water drop as part of that, but the coaches do. But I never was concerned about it. It didn't freak me out. Did I like looking shredded? Yeah, I do. But I also don't get self-conscious and think I'm fat. I don't ever look at myself. I'll joke about it. I'll be like, oh, my fat ass is going to go eat some cookies real quick. I joke about it, but I'm not seriously thinking and looking at myself thinking I'm fat, because coming from a really fat, level of 230 pounds, anything below that to me is I'm happy with, and I never want to get back up to that point ever again. And I know physically and mentally I won't ever let myself. And I do see sometimes these competitors that'll get off a show and gain 40, 50 pounds. And I just look at them do you know how hard it is to lose that 40, 50 pounds? I personally do. I would never do that to myself again, because it's so hard to lose it, especially as a woman and as we age, because I'm 28, so I'm getting closer to 30. It's getting harder and harder every year to lose that body fat. So it's I wouldn't want to go outrageous to where it would be hard to get back ready for a show, but I'm very comfortable with the fact that I might have to gain 10, 12 pounds. For me, like I said, it's always been a losing body fat thing for each show, because since I came from such a deficit. So an off season for me, this will probably be my first off season, depending on how this goes anyways. Depending on how this show goes. I don't think it's necessary for me to gain a ton of weight just because it's taken all this to lose the weight. Obviously not stay shredded, but, stay at a nice level. So therefore we can get to, because in women's physique, we do have to get shredded to the bone. If you want to be competitive and you want to turn pro and you want to compete in the pro division, you do have to have a really low body fat percentage. So you do have to sustain a decent body fat level without it being at a dangerous level. So this off season, I'm more so excited to have beef and 97% lean turkey again. That sounds so good. I've been on fish and chicken this whole year, basically. Well, minus the first couple months of this year. But it's I can't wait to just have regular meat again, because then it's the options open up and it's oh, I could make a lean meatloaf if I wanted to. So I'm just excited to have regular options again. Maybe throw some blueberries in my oatmeal. That's what I'm excited about. Obviously, I like food.
That sounds amazing, and that's making me hungry. So right after this, I'm gonna have to go and get some. I'm gonna go and have probably some chicken or some turkey turkey, and I'll be thinking about you when I have it, though, because you gotta be clean for another 2 weeks. But I'll do the eating for us for the next about 2 hours. So anyway, going on, one of the big things that I love to ask, one of my favorite things to ask, is when I started working out and getting in a better shape, and putting on the muscle, putting on size. One of the things that I didn't like at first was you're gonna get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. You're gonna get asked to lift a lot of furniture. You're gonna get asked to whenever there's groceries coming home, you're gonna get asked to always go out and basically lift the car in the garage because you got to bring everything out. So has that been a similar experience with you, or when people look at you, especially in the past few years, when they look at you and say like, "Oh my God, she looks great"? Do you think that sometimes people then expect you to do favors for them, whether it comes to lifting furniture or helping them out?
First of all, my clients, being a barber, so they're all male clients, they all laugh because I tell them, I'm like, I'm the laziest fizz person you will ever meet. Because I'm like, I'm so lazy that I'll put my sugar cup on a bench and take it up just so I don't have to bend over and pick it up from the floor. And they start laughing. Like, all my male clients know me. I'm a big jokester too. But yeah, I have been asked to move things, and I'm like, nope, sorry. No, thank you. Yeah, so it's like, but I will say one confusion that always cracks me up, because having a dominant male clientele for 5 years, it was like, they were like, "Oh, you're going to kick my ass," this and that. And I was like, why do people always confuse muscles for fighting skills? I was like, I have no fighting skills. It was like, I have street fighting skills, but those are if I'm actually in a fight.
Yeah. That's one of those things too that we hear on here all the time. And me personally, I mean, I'm 6'3", so when people look at me, and I have muscles too, so when they look at me, they're like, "Yeah, this guy needs to help me move my fridge." So that's kind of a disadvantage that I have to begin with. But like you mentioned, you're a barber, and you mentioned microblading, which is something that I've never really, I've heard of it, but I don't really know specifically what it is. Could you explain to the audience, if they've never heard of that too, what sort of that is and what you do?
So I've been doing it now for 2 years as of this month. Microblading is a semi-permanent tattooing process done by hand, not a machine, to imitate individual hair strokes on the eyebrows. So instead of that solid line like you would see in the 80s, it actually forms hairs to look like the most natural look, and it's not a permanent eyebrow either. So if let's say they wanted to stop getting it, they could just let it fade out, and it'd be gone within 5-ish years and completely gone, if it's done right. And I've seen a lot of terrible heavy-handed work, but yeah, when done right, I mean, it could fade out if you don't want it anymore. And then the new service I just got certified for this past weekend in Phoenix, actually, I'm the first to bring it here to Wisconsin. It's called fibroblasting, and it's basically, to sum it up shortly, it's like plastic surgery without going under the knife. So it would take a whole nother podcast to describe it.
Yeah.
But that's basically what I'm bringing to Wisconsin. So I'm just now launching it here. So I'm really excited about that. And that's kind of why I'm retiring hair, so I can bring that service full on with my eyebrows.
Yeah. So now we go to our audience favorite part of the podcast, and my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire where I'm going to ask Dianna here about a dozen or so questions and see how she stacks up against all the other health and fitness guests that we've had on the show. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay. So if I'm feeling lack of motivation, and it's just I can't get my head in the game, there is a band. So my choice of music is everywhere. I don't really listen to country too much, but I used to listen to hardcore death metal, heavy all the time. Recently, this last couple years, it's been a lot of rap music and stuff like that, but I still love everything. And then I listen to Latino music. I listen to everything. But if I really need to get my head in the game, I listen to this band called Defeater. They're a hardcore band, strictly because of the fact that they have I can relate to him on a lot of levels. He lost his, basically his whole family. He lost his brother. I lost my brother, and he writes a couple songs that really just kind of hit the strings in the heart. So whenever I listen to those songs, I think about my father and my brother who I lost, which is actually, everybody comments on my back tattoo. That's what it's for. It's a memorial piece from my dad and my brother. So when I really need to get my shit together, get my head in the game, I listen to those songs and he has multiple songs. There's so many of them, but Defeater is what will get my head in the game.
That's awesome. So, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Dwayne Johnson.
I was okay. When I post this, you're gonna be like our 51st health and fitness guest, and he's been the answer about 45 of the times. So he is by far our most popular
I'll
one.
choose a different one.
Okay.
If I could choose anybody, it would be Flex Lewis because of the fact that I have met him. He was actually the first bodybuilder I ever met at the first bodybuilding show I ever went to.
Wow.
And he was my first introduction to a professional athlete in the bodybuilding industry. And I'm so glad it was him because he was the sweetest, kindest, humblest guy. And I actually went to the Flex Lewis Classic the following year just to go there for the whole experience and to meet DLB for the first time and everything. And it was great. So if I could work out with anybody, it would be him because I really like Neil Hill's form of training because obviously he's his coach. I really like the methodology that they use for it, and I actually take a lot of their workouts and do them myself too.
That's awesome. So now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity on the planet, who would it be?
If I could train anybody, honestly, it would probably be, this is for the entrepreneurship side, it would be Grant Cardone. Because, I would love to train Grant Cardone because I love his personality. He would be someone who I would love to just like talk to on the daily, not just for like a business aspect, but just I feel like he's got a lot of wisdom in him, I would like to train Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone, if you're watching this.
Absolutely. I hope he's watching this. So now, what is your favorite, I know you're retiring from it soon, but what is your favorite hairstyle and least favorite hairstyle?
Oh, I've cut a lot of different hairstyles. I've even cut mullets.
Okay, we're going to pause right here. Mullets are the one thing that I wish, I am a sucker for a good mullet, just being from the Midwest. I've never grown one myself, but business in the front, party in the back. We had a guy in high school for my football team who grew one out, and it's one of the greatest things ever. Whenever I see a mullet and a guy's still rocking it, I just almost want to stop and shake his hand and say, thank you, sir, for continuing.
Dude, I'm actually really good at cutting a mullet too, because I'll get those guys that still wear their blue jean jackets and their tight jeans. They're like, I want it. The key words are feathered on the side, keep the length in the back.
Ooh, yes.
My favorite, I do love doing a good bald fade. So going from complete skin into like, if they have the perfect hair texture, oh my God, it's like cream fading up. I love that. It's so fun to do. It's like an art. And the least favorite,
Perm.
Oh, I've stopped doing those since the first year I started doing hair.
Good.
I straight up told them that I was not going to do perms ever. I hate it. My fingers, chubby digits, I do not do with those little tiny things. You have to wrap a piece of paper on their hair, then wrap the paper around the roller, keep the hair inside the paper, then roll it. Nope. So no perms. Perms are what I hate.
Yeah, I was going to say, my dad used to rock a perm for about a year in the 80s, and we still give him crap about it to this day from some of the photos that we see. So that's just, I
still have men asking me if I'd perm their hair, and I'm like, no. They're like, do you do permanents? And I'm like,
I've lost all hope in humanity from hearing that people still want it.
You just said permanent. I
want a permanent perm right now.
Even if I did do them, I would not do it for you.
Oh, yeah. I'd tell them, I'd be like, you don't want that pain and torture. You don't want that. It's unnecessary. But
I've seen it too, because it's like the hipster style.
Yes. Well, those people 10 years from now, those people are gonna, be so embarrassed. But what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
That I need to have. The first thing that comes to mind is egg whites. But I'd probably say, as far as like my favorite thing to have on my food, which I can't have right now, is my sugar-free barbecue sauce. I love condiments.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm watching football right after we're done with this here, and my uncle every Saturday he brings over his ribs and he brings over his barbecue sauce. So, that's I absolutely love it. But now, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Cookies and cream. Cookies and cream. And I'm lactose intolerant, so Lactaid makes ice cream. Yep. It's full on sugar and everything, so it's not like diet ice cream. But they, like, obviously I've had regular ice cream, but they by far make the best ice cream ever because the consistency is so creamy. Like you just put your spoon in it and it just like melts in the spoon. And there's like actual whole cookies in there. Like, they'll jip you on cookies. No, Lactate does not. They're like, here's some Oreos. And I'm like, yes. Like, I don't even need to add cookies to it because they put so much cookie in it. It's like you get cookie in every bite. So Lactate's cookies and cream is my favoriteest.
Chocolate chip cookie dough blizzard for me from Dairy Queen is the go-to. Where if I get one of those,
banana cream pie blizzard, but they discontinued it.
I know. Yeah, I'm so mad. I'm just happy when they get the
I got pissed inside the drive-thru whenever they told me they just decided to discontinue it. I was like, you're kidding me. I said, you guys have pie pieces and bananas. Just do it for me.
Yeah. Well, I just can't wait for them to get the pumpkin pie blizzard back because that's my favorite. I mean, pumpkin pie is my favorite pie. I mean, I'm one of those people where this is the time of the year now where I can, pig out and gain on a little, like 5 to 10 pounds just by eating pumpkin pie just alone. I mean, it's, just thinking about that right now is just making me so hungry.
I'm telling everybody that for Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving's following after my show, I said I'm eating a whole pie. And half of it's going to be pumpkin and half is going to be pecan. And I'm going to cover it and smother it in Cool Whip. And they start laughing and I'm like, no, I'm serious.
You think it's funny? Yeah, just wait until you see it.
I'm legit going to eat a whole pie.
Other than, that brings us to a whole nother topic. Other than pie, what is your other favorite thing to eat on Thanksgiving?
Ooh, Thanksgiving. I love stuffing. I love eating the stuffing with the cranberry. Otherwise, Southern, we make what we call cornbread dressing.
Ooh,
that's definitely good. Like a tradition in the South is the cornbread dressing. Oh my God, it's so good.
Mine is the potatoes that we have. We make some of the best potatoes. I just go to town, and then we have Jello too that we make. We usually make like cherry flavored Jello, and that's
I think it's a Wisconsin thing. Those like crispy potatoes. Like the creamy with the crunchy on the top and stuff. I think it's a Wisconsin thing.
Oh, we just have like regular just potatoes.
Like regular potatoes.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, when we're talking, Minnesota, just tuna casserole or hot Minnesota tater tot hot dish. That's a whole Minnesota thing, but we don't have that during Thanksgiving as much. I mean, there's still probably some people that do it, but going back to our questionnaire, what is one thing that people who follow you on Instagram would be surprised to know about you if they met you in person?
I guess probably like my full-on background story of my childhood. Probably that would be about it because I'm pretty much me. I mean, that's one thing people love following me for is when they meet me in real life, I'm the same person. Like I'm me, and that's one quality I wanted to keep was I didn't want people to be surprised when they met me and think that if they were meeting somebody else, like what they see is what they get. And that's me. I'm funny. I'm corny. I'm goofy. And, I also love beauty and I like being on fleek and I have a little touch of ghetto in there because of how I was raised. Yeah. So it's like, it's just, I'm very me on my social media. I don't really hide anything. The only thing I have really full on come out is my full on story, which is something building up to.
Oh, absolutely. And that's totally one of those things where you definitely need to do that. And I got to ask, you were originally from the South, what was your experience like your first winter up here?
That's so funny. So I came up here in 5th grade. So I just turned 11. And I got up here and there, I still had my accent. I lost my accent very early because the kids made fun of me. So I was trying to talk like them. And they're like, you talk so funny. And I was like, no, you guys talk funny. I was like, you say bag and bagel and rug. You call a water fountain a bubbler.
Yeah, that's the one thing I never got about Wisconsin. That's the one typical just Wisconsin thing. No one else ever calls it the bubbler.
I was like, where's the water fountain? They're like, we don't have water fountains. I'm like drink water, and they're like, oh, the bubbler. And I'm like, oh, what? And like it was like all these new words, but they were like, man, you missed the blizzard last year. We're gonna have so much, kids are over embellished. They're like, we're gonna have so much snow this year. And I was like, yeah, like cool, like I've never seen snow, like this can be fun. It was like one of the lightest winters we ever had when I first moved up here. So I was like, where's all this snow, you guys? I was expecting to go like, sledding and stuff, and this is happening.
Yeah. It's one of those. It's either hit or miss, where you can get some of the worst weather, you can get some of the decent sized weather. But yeah, it is a huge adjustment up here. But now, what is one thing about the sport of bodybuilding that you would change if you had the all knowing power to do so?
To change, I will say, I just like everybody who's in the industry, they will always say that there is a form of politics, but that's just, even if I could change it, it wouldn't matter, because it's the same as anything in the real world, such as realistic politics, when we're trying to, get a new president or a new mayor or something. It doesn't matter what sport you're in or what division or whatever it is, there's always going to be some form of politics. Are there some that are a little bit unfair that I've seen? Yes. But it doesn't matter. It's going to be there no matter what. I'd probably say that'd be the only thing. And as far as like the concept of people thinking that, everybody's vain and this and that, there are some people like that. Yes, no doubt. But I've actually met a lot of nice people. Like my first time walking into a bodybuilder gym, which is actually the gym I'm very blessed to be at every single day, which is Animal House Gym here. And they moved to New Berlin, which is actually close to where I live at now. So that's my home gym. But when I first went there, my first time as a 200-pound girl, I was like intimidated, because as soon as I walked in, I was like, wow, this is a whole nother level of people in shape. And I was like, I'm a fat girl walking in here. And like, I was so like timid and self-conscious, just like any other person would be. But it was actually that first experience walking in there was the best ever, because everybody was really nice. That was actually the one thing that I could reiterate to everybody else whenever they asked me what it was like. And I said, people were very nice. They said people came up to me and they were like introducing themselves to me, and they were really nice. And one of the girls I met, her name's Andy. She's a personal trainer there. She's been one for years. She was actually one of the first people I met, and she was such a sweetheart. And I'm actually really good friends with her now. And I looked up to her so much. I was like, God, her glutes and her legs look so good. I was like, I want to look like that.
Yeah. It's one of those things too, where one of the big things that I've really discovered, or I knew, but I really just like to, show on this podcast, is that most of the time, the people that are really big, the muscular, the bodybuilders, they're some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. So you can go up to them in the gym, and all the time, they're always super, super approachable. Like I always say, they'll make sure that like they're not mid-set and you go up and talk to them, because that's,
that will definitely disturb them.
Yeah, I've seen that happening at college a couple times, and I went up to a guy right before he was about to do it, and I said, don't do it. The guy was clearly working. It's like, just wait until he's done with his set, wait until he looks approachable. But yeah, some of the nicest people and most accepting people you'll ever meet, and I couldn't, say more how great they are. The 99.9% of the people that are bodybuilders out there, I mean, they're just awesome, awesome people. So now we go to the so positive too. Yeah. Now we go to our most important part of the podcast with the questionnaire. Also, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Shameless.
Ooh, that is the first Shameless that we've got for the binge watch.
And I just recently binge watched the Santa Clarita Diet on Netflix with Drew Barrymore. That one was good too.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I haven't watched it, but I definitely.
It was funny.
Yeah. So now, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Ooh, toss up between Breaking Bad and Dexter.
Ooh, those are good ones too. Now, what is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Guilty pleasure. Oh man, I like a lot of movies. I would probably say Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yep.
Because whenever I was a kid, like we would have movie night as family and stuff like that, and my mom would always choose Eraser. I don't know why she loved that movie. Like, we always hated rewatching it for like the 50th time, still on a VHS tape. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, like when I got older, I was like, okay, I kind of like this movie. And then my brother, who has passed away, his was Cliffhanger. Oh my God, he loved Sylvester Stallone. He loved Cliffhanger. So Cliffhanger and Eraser, I'd probably say, but kind of more so like for nostalgic reasons, I guess.
The similar movie that I had where we watched it so many times that the VHS tape broke, but it's not my guilty pleasure, The Goonies, when we were growing up.
Yes,
we watched that
yes.
so many times that the VHS literally broke on it because it got used so many times. But yeah, now to this day, I mean, I haven't watched it fully for probably like the last 5 years. To this day, I can quote the entire movie from start to finish, and you could tell me any scene to start at, and I can tell. We've had contests where my friends have done that. They're like, okay, when this scene starts, I literally am able to quote the scene from start to finish. It is so ingrained in my head. It is, yeah, and it's always a fun party trick too. Like if I'm at a party and they're like, hey, Ryan can quote the entire thing of Goonies. Why don't you give him a try? So it's
kind of like Anchorman with me. Me and my good friend Shane, we used to watch it all the time in high school. Like I'm pretty good at quoting that movie. Like there's been some guys that have been like, what? Like you know the entire movie, and I'm like,
how many times in the gym?
Don't act like you're not impressed.
How many times in the gym have you done the 1009, 1010, 1000? And then when she's walking in, she's like, oh yeah, sorry, it's a deep burn in my arm when he's doing the curls. Yeah.
My arm and my upper dorsalis.
Yeah, my upper.
It's
science. Have you seen? Okay, so do you know the fact that, or do you know that there actually are so many deleted scenes from the original movie that they made a second movie out of it?
Oh, did they? See, okay, so like when I started building my business, I've like kind of completely, for the last 2 years straight, I have like hardly watched any TV until this year, now that my business is kind of on a steady state to where I can actually try and start getting a life again. So like I haven't watched a football game in 2 years. I haven't like gone to the movie theaters in over a year. Like it's taken everything. It took me 4 jobs and bodybuilding to start my business. So I'm just now trying to be a little normal again.
I feel so bad for you that you haven't had, but yeah, I'm going to send you a link to that because they made a whole movie out of the deleted scenes and it's so funny. And I highly recommend it. But now for our last, it's great. So now for our last question, the questionnaire, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
I would tell her to stop doing drugs, start lifting, and to save your money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wish I would have. The save money part was being a college grad. I wish I would have been able to come back and talk to my 18-year-old self on that for sure.
I seriously, well, because like I said, since we didn't have parents, we had beneficiary money and stuff like that. I spent it pretty much on drugs. Yeah. And if I would have saved that, oh my God, the ways it could help me now. I mean, I don't regret it. Everything happens for a reason. But if I could go back and tell myself something, I'd be like, stop being stupid with your money, save it, and start lifting weights. Because if I would have started lifting weights at an earlier age, first off, how fucking like shredded I would look right now.
Yeah.
Second off, the form of discipline that would have been what I would have needed to stay on track. But like I said, everything happens for a reason. And had I not gone through all the things that I went through negatively, it all was for a positive picture because it developed me to the person I am today.
So now before we wrap things up here, I like to ask these few final questions. What is your favorite body part to train and least favorite body part to train?
Favorite is shoulders and back. Least favorite, legs.
Thankfully. I've had all these girls on here, they're like, yeah, I love to train legs. And I was like, no, you're lying. You don't love to train legs. Yeah,
oh
I was like, screw.
People think that I do like insane leg workouts because like I said, my legs are my most dominant feature. But I will say that is part of my genetics. Absolutely.
Lucky.
That is the one genetic feature I have is insane leg growth. Like my coach is even like yelling at me about how I pose. He's like, you need to hide your legs. He's like, put them together, put your knees together. He's like, because they look too much bigger than the rest of my body. So we actually have to disguise. And in fact, I haven't done speaking of legs, I honestly haven't done a leg day in like 3 weeks. Like a full-on leg day. And then when I do legs, I don't think I go that hard, and I like F them up so bad that it's hard for me to do like my cardio because I'm on 2 hours a day right now. So that's a lot of cardio. So I think a lot of my leg development also comes from that cardio. So I really don't need to do much leg day. I will still do them just because I know they need to look aesthetically pleasing. But I don't really do legs too much. In off season though, I will definitely hit them hard a little bit because I do I do want them to grow because honestly, having a good set of legs is a benefit in the bodybuilding industry. But I also have to maintain up here. So I've been training up top like 2-3 times a week, which has actually been a blast because I love training shoulders and back.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned before that you have a few sponsors. Would you like to give them a shout out?
One kind of fell through. It was his first time sponsoring, and it was my first time asking for one. So I was like, you know what? Let's just approach this whenever we're both in a better situation. So that one kind of didn't work out. I will say, squeeze me skinny, definitely. I have a code, code Dianna. I love Squeeze Me Skinny. They take care of me. Always keeping my waist tight. I mean, I have a small waist, but definitely, I would say the waist training helped get rid of the love handles when I was losing like the majority of my weight. Like my love handles are just hanging out there for good life. I was like, dude, you need to go. The waist training got the love handles.
All right.
And Bolero, they have definitely been a good support recently, actually. They've been really good. I met them at Olympia. So Bolero USA on Instagram. They've been good to me for sure. And of course, I got to give my coach a shout out. Underrated Muscle. It's underrated_muscle on Instagram. Dave is my coach. Really love my coach. He's very attentive. He's very detailed. And whenever it gets down to the nitty gritty, I mean, he's checking in with you all the time. So very good coach. I'm very pleased with him. And he works with majority of females, which is why it works great for me because he understands the female body and the different types of female bodies. Absolutely. So he's very custom with the meal plan for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. I'll leave all the links down below that you can follow her at her Instagram. Go and give her a follow. I mean, you're going to be inspired to work out. You're going to be inspired to get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies and just get in shape. I mean, she's just a great inspiration to go and follow. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that can be hard sometimes, but we really, really appreciate it. And just being an inspiration, just keep doing what you're doing. And we wish you nothing but the best in your competition.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So again, Dianna Johnston, go and check her out. Links down below. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.